Hey guys, Brandon here. Before we get started with the episode, I just wanted to let you guys in on a little bit of a secret. Over the last few months, I've been working on a super secret, super exciting project. It's very much in the same vein as Sounds Good and the Good Newsletter. Its mission is to tell stories of good in the world, to spread optimism, to spread hope, and to ultimately make the world a better place. And it's really ambitious and really exciting, but unfortunately, I can't talk about it yet. Pretty soon I will be able to. But until then, here's kind of the workaround I've found. I'm putting together a ground crew of people who want to give feedback and help me bring this thing to life, to help me spread it and share it, and again, hopefully make the world a better place through it. So if you want to be a part of that, I've got a plan. So you go to brandonharvey.com/secret. That's Brandon with an E-N, brandonharvey.com/secret. Fill out the form. It just basically asks you for your email address, your name, a few other tiny things, and then I'll know to get in touch with you with kind of a little bit of a mock-up of what we're working on and how you can be involved. So if you're interested, brandonharvey.com/secret, and let's jump into the show. Hello. Welcome to Sounds Good with Brandon Harvey. I am Brandon Harvey, and this is the podcast where every single week we get to sit down and have these inspiring, encouraging, and hopeful conversations with people who are making a difference in the world, who are living these lives of hope and joy and wonder and intentionality, all these things that I really value and I think that you value as well. We're in the middle of February right now, and this is kind of the time where a lot of people's New Year's resolutions begin to fizzle out, or if you're succeeding at them, then this is the point in time when you're really hitting your stride. I actually opted to not make any New Year's resolutions this year and actually dedicated January to be something that I have dubbed Planuary. So I took the month of January, not really off, but January is generally a little bit slower for me. And so I dedicated the month to planning out what the next year would be with my wife. So we went to Mexico and we got away and we sat on the beach and we planned what our lives might look like over the next 1 year and over the next 5 years. And it was really, really fun. It was a really great time. I'm glad that we did it. I think that it was I think we're going to try to do stuff like that, whether we go to Mexico or we just do it, in our home. We're going to try to do that every year in January. But with that said, I just got started on my quote unquote New Year's resolutions at the beginning of February. And for me, a lot of those had to do with health. I'm working on all these big projects. I'm entering into year 2 of the podcast, continuing on with the Good Newsletter and all these things that I'm really passionate about, really excited about. And I'm realizing that I just want more brain power. I want my brain to just work really, really well. When I'm in conversations with podcast guests, I want it to be flowing and moving. And when I'm, out in the world having conversations with people or really focusing in on things, I want to be able to concentrate and focus. And I feel like a huge contributor in that world is exercise and eating. And so I've been learning how to do that, trying to figure out how to do that more. And so I actually, almost selfishly, I was like, oh, you know who I should talk to for the podcast is my friend McKel. So I got to have a conversation with McKel Hill about the world of nutrition and health and fitness and how that relates to living a more balanced life. McKel is based here in Nashville, and she is a registered dietitian and nutritionist, and she's also the founder of this fantastic blog/community/resource called Nutrition Stripped. She also wrote a cookbook called Nutrition Stripped, full of recipes and beautiful photos, and she is just so smart when it comes to this world. You've actually probably even heard of her. She's been featured in Glamour, Vogue, Bon Appetit, Women's Health Magazine, the Food Network, all these places. She's all over the internet. She went to school for all this stuff. She is an absolute pro. She's not just reading stuff on the internet like I am. And so I loved getting to kind of have these conversations with her about nutrition and health and how to have a more balanced well-being. And I think that that's key. I think that she does this really interesting thing because she's so smart in the world of health and food. And, that's what she studied. But she also really focuses on self-care and living a life of balance. And she, in this episode, she's going to talk a little bit about burnout and kind of experiencing that and how to kind of cope with that and how to recover from that. So let's just jump into the conversation. This is McKel Hill and I sitting down in conversation here in Nashville, Tennessee. So I recently saw that you were just nominated for a Shorty Award. Congratulations.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I just got that email recently, and it was just like, it's one of those things where you're like, oh, this is amazing. I've been, in the know about the Shorty Awards, and it's also just a big honor to be in the group of people that I'm with. So
yeah, that's so cool. What was the category you were in again?
I'm in creative media / health and wellness.
Sweet. That's awesome.
I know. It's crazy.
Man, did you know that I've been nominated for Shorty Awards twice before?
Really?
I was not nominated this year, and I've never won, but that's because I was up against DJ Khaled and Kylie Jenner.
Oh,
so,
no way.
Of course,
yeah, I have they
deserve it.
Yeah. It's one of those things, like, I'm honored just to be a nominee. And I'm up with, like, awesome people like that, like some celebrity status, like health and wellness folks. So it's like, hey, just thank you.
It's so fun. It's so exciting. I love seeing your name on the list.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
I want to talk a little bit about, healthy living and where that passion has come from. Can you just bring me back a little bit to telling me where this passion started?
Yeah. So I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist. I went to school for it. I'm the founder of Nutrition Stripped and new author of Nutrition Stripped, which is a cookbook that came out.
I love it. Yeah.
With HarperCollins over the summer. So really excited about that. And it's been a wild journey in the best way. So it turns 4 January 2017. I've been doing it full time for 3 years that month. So
wow.
Really, it started as this whole Nutrition Strip brand now, as it is. It really started as a creative outlet, just a food blog for me to share my nutrition expertise. And it's kind of grown into this beautiful, crazy community that's amazing across the globe. And it's been really wonderful to see it grow and really put a lot of time and energy to facilitate that and help people feel better too every day, just with inspirational recipes or nutrition advice, one-on-one coaching.
That's amazing.
All that good stuff.
And you kind of jumped into this world a little bit on accident originally, though. Can you tell me a little bit about the process of thinking, oh my gosh, I need to make a change in my life. I need to figure out, how to live in a more healthy, nutritious way?
Yeah, so my story kind of started in high school. So I'm from Ohio, Midwest. We have our fair share of gardening and healthy foods, and grew up in a really kind of normal, quote, family, healthy, but also I was a teenager, ate so much junk food too, and had that balance from the get-go. And in high school, I had horrible migraines, and I was really into art, and I was kind of your quintessential art nerd, right?
No way.
So yeah, I graduated high school with a 1.8 GPA because I was banking on going to art school.
What kind of art were you into?
I loved painting, mixed media, abstract art, watercolors, anything.
That's cool.
But with these migraines, they really took me out. If you've ever had one, I don't know if you've had one, Brandon, but they're just... They're the worst. They're debilitating. They make you feel like rubbish. You kind of want to seclude yourself in a dark room and avoid sound and light and all of these things. So obviously doing artwork, that wasn't conducive to it.
No.
So, it bummed me out. But being a 15, 16-year-old, I had no connection with maybe the food I'm eating or maybe the lifestyle that I'm engaging in isn't, helping.
Did you have any idea did you have theories at the time where you're like, why am I having these terrible, terrible migraines?
Honestly, I just thought it was familial. My grandmother had them, my mom had them every so often. So I just thought, this is just the card I'm dealt. And there is some merit to that, but a lot of, issues in our health can be stemmed by our lifestyle and what we eat and everything. So fast forward to college, to that point where I realized, hey, I can't make a living off being an artist. I actually need to get into something that I enjoy. Went to Ohio State's branch campus because, again, my GPA didn't allow me to get into that main campus, and was a psychology major because that was one thing I was really interested in, is the sociology of people and really learning just counseling and therapy. I really enjoyed that aspect of it.
Was that something you'd had experience with before, like the counseling, et cetera, at that time?
I took psychology classes in high school,
Cool.
and like
I
some
did too.
AP classes too.
It blew
'cause
my mind.
Yeah, it's just fascinating. You know, and it helps you too, like, have communication best with people that you love and relationships, and just to get an inside working of your own self too. So when I was in college and in that major, I was kind of came to that realization, like, oh, well, maybe this is a little bit too heavy. Like, I don't think I can counsel people every day as in depth as this field would require of me. So kind of went to the drawing board. I think like everybody does who goes to college, they kind of skip around some majors. And I've always loved food. And I had a friend who was in fitness modeling and bodybuilding. And she was just really into like athletics. And I was like, okay, I'm going to like just chime in because it's fun and I'll just like hop in there with you. And started working out with her a lot. And this is really where I had this was my catalyst for getting into nutrition, was sports nutrition. So I loved the fact that we could fuel our body, we could physically transform it, we could help it, get stronger just by what we're doing with our lifestyle and eating.
And you're probably almost seeing a lot more cause and effect. You're like, oh my gosh, by doing this thing, this person is able to excel in this thing that they were doing already.
Exactly. And it was just really fascinating to be like, hey, let me try to help you like get all of your macronutrients, carbs, fat, protein, but kind of make it fun and in a college dorm or on a budget, it was a great experimental phase for me with cooking and meal planning. And so that was the catalyst that really got me into nutrition major. So, of course, going into the dietetic curriculum, which is amazing, it's clinical based, so that means it's a lot of like medical nutrition therapy. You're really like treating people with diabetes or hypertension, so you're kind of coming at it with that angle, which is a really firm, amazing foundation. But it wasn't necessarily a calling to me or a passion of mine. Like, I really loved like the psychology behind it, again, like the coaching, the counseling aspect, and then coupled with a class that I took on philosophy in my sophomore year in college. And that really transformed my thinking around animals.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, tell me more about that.
So that kind of led me down. It's funny, as I tell my story and tell the process of how I become a dietitian with I would say maybe a more integrative approach. It's funny to relive these experiences, but that philosophy class really taught me about just sentient beings and animals and ethics and morals, and it really made me question, like, oh, okay, what's aware and what's not in terms of animals. And so that really got me into vegetarian and vegan eating and lifestyles.
Fascinating. Was there, when you were studying philosophy, was there like a particular story or concept or philosopher that really stuck out to you?
Singer.
Tell me more about Singer.
So he had a couple books, and I just really enjoyed his books on just animal welfare and just the ethics about it. So honestly, it was just a couple stories. That's all it took. Like, I've always been an animal lover, so I kind of went full in, as I do with anything. It's like an all or nothing. So I really went in full force with vegetarian and vegan lifestyle, and I did that for about 5 to 6 years, 8 years. And really dove in. And of course, being in that dietetic curriculum, yes, we do learn about vegetarian and vegan diets and lifestyles, but it's fairly limited. So I was a book nerd and would just soak up any information from other professionals in the industry and really just kind of make it work for me and learn all about that kind of lifestyle. So fast forward again, that's kind of led me to the present day, where it's been a balance of kind of merging everything I've learned and outside research.
And during this whole process, as you were learning more and more about nutrition and about your body and about, all these things that, you're going to school for, did you see a transformation in the way that your body was reacting to the changes you were making? Like, were the migraines going away?
Yeah, so that's a great point. So as, and for those of you who aren't familiar with vegan or vegetarian diets, essentially you're not consuming any animal products, right? So during that process, of course, you're doing eliminations of these certain food groups, for example. So dairy. Dairy was the first thing that I cut out when I started experimenting a little bit more with the vegetarian lifestyle. I didn't just go all in because I kind of needed to practice a little bit. So I took out dairy for a couple of weeks and my skin improved, my energy increased, I had less bloating and less digestive issues. And some things I didn't even realize as well. Like I always thought like, oh, this is what it is to be normal. Like I always thought my baseline was normal, but it wasn't until I started taking out things that were irritating to me personally and then increasing nutrient density overall. Because, of course, when you take out something, you have to replace it with something best or replace it with something.
Yeah.
But I chose to choose, foods and items that would replace it with more nutrient density. But it was within that period of time, which is really short. I mean, I'm talking a couple weeks. It was like, wow. Dairy is no good for me. And so I kept that out for at least a month. And then I also tried gluten because I was like, okay, I'm just going to go through like maybe the top 8 allergens and just test it out and see for myself if I'm going to feel even better. So I tried out gluten. I tried out everything, just to test it out. And gluten and dairy for me just were not friendly. They made my digestive system just so out of whack with bloating.
And you didn't realize all of this until you took it away. You thought that you were kind of normal.
Exactly.
And maybe you were, but you kind of discovered, oh, there's like a next level.
Exactly. And it took about a month or so for me to really get the full benefits with the migraines. If anybody knows with migraines or that have suffered from chronic migraines, they're kind of cyclical and they come in like waves. So it really took me a bit for me to get the full benefit and decrease in migraines. So that was really great. And just like you said too, it's like one of those things, it's an aha moment where you're like, oh, I thought I was feeling normal. And it's not until you change habits that you're like, wow, I can actually feel better. I can actually optimize my health and feel like this is what it's supposed to feel like.
Yeah.
Wow.
I love that. And what's really interesting to me about you is that I think there's a lot of, people on the internet who are, they could be described as lifestyle bloggers or, even food bloggers or whatever it is, who are just kind of, they're learning, they're processing, but you come at it from a full-on like education standpoint. Like you are a professional, you went to school for this stuff. In a lot of ways, you take it on the role of a teacher from a place of authority. Like you actually have authority to speak to this. What's been the process of figuring out how to be not just somebody who learns this for herself and not just somebody who practices this for herself, but somebody who teaches others how to, in some ways, like follow in your footsteps and to have some of the achievements that you've come to have as well?
I love that question so much. And I think, going back to the whole social media and just in this industry, I think everybody has one goal in mind. They just want to help people and they want to help people feel better. And I do sometimes get frustrated because there's a lot of just misinformation that's just thrown around out there and people just want to feel better and sometimes they're desperate and will just listen to anybody. So I almost feel like it's a responsibility of mine to use that authority, use my background and expertise to really shine a light and be that teacher. And I think it's been over the past 4 years with Nutrition Stripped and the blog, it has transformed from initially me being a pretty lecture style teacher. So my blog posts were very informative and long and just I didn't necessarily know how to insert myself in terms of personality. And it's been a really wonderful growing phase, really learning the community and getting their feedback. And what I think registers most with people is connection and is sharing more about my story and my day-to-day life and being like, hey, you know what, I'm human too. I still have to practice every single day what I preach and practice self-care. And so it's a really beautiful cycle because it not only helps me teach better, but it's a reminder to myself every day too.
That's amazing. That reminds me of my favorite teacher from middle school, Mr. Johnson. And I didn't realize why he was my favorite until years later. But at the time, I just thought that he was a cool teacher. Like I was like, oh, I like this guy. But it was because he shared so much of his story and so much of his life. And none of my other teachers were doing that. All my other teachers were like, here's the information. And I trusted them as an authority figure, but I didn't connect with them on an empathetic level. I didn't see them as another human. And I think the moment that I've learned a lot from you because I'm like, oh, this is like my friend McKel, and I know I know her story, and I know who she is, and so I can kind of have this trust. So it's actually really interesting that by taking a more personal approach, people are, they're able to learn the same content in a better way. That's amazing.
Yeah, and I love, just like you, Brennan, too, the digital platform. It's an amazing way to connect with people, and I don't take that for granted. Like I love being able to email with the folks, with the readers in the NS community, and comment and engage in Snapchat and Instagram stories, and have that like real quote like FaceTime, as close as FaceTime as you're gonna get. But it's a really wonderful teaching process, even in those moments.
Yeah.
So I do think it's a really nice combination of that authority, but also having real life experiences and being courageous in that vulnerability and sharing it with folks.
I love that.
Yeah.
You've talked a lot about balance, and balance is something that for me is like super hard. My wife is always teasing me because I'm basically I'm hot or I'm cold. Like I'm extreme. So either there's something that I love and that is the best ever, or like I hate it and that is the worst. Like I'm not great at balance, and any balance I achieve is something I have to be really intentional and mindful about pursuing and saying yes to. I have to say, all right, this is the extreme that I want to feel. This is the other extreme I could go to. How can I meet in the middle? Tell me about your process of learning balance, because that has so much to do with everything that goes into our bodies. But like on a personal level, like have you always been somebody who's able to find that balance and kind of strike that nuance between black and white, or no?
No. Oh my gosh. If you could see me right now, I'm like shaking my head. So it's actually really, like I said, I have to practice what I preach every single day. It's still a challenge for me, and a good challenge. But I am a black and white person. I'm like an all or nothing. I'm in full force or I'm not in at all. So to me, that is not balance. That is not the definition of balance. So and I could be like that with work. Overworking, which I've already experienced burnout in like a short 4 years of having my own business.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just in that fact, I wasn't practicing balance, nor was I listening to the signs that I wasn't in my own alignment or in my, power. I was just like working nonstop. And it was after a cookbook shoot. So it was like this whole combination of things in ignoring my own signs of being tired and lethargic, not finding motivation in my work, and just being really worn down. And I mean, quite literally just overworking, from the time I opened my eyes in the morning to the time I went to bed. So to me, that was just it was a low point, but I'm incredibly grateful that I did go through that burnout phase. Because I was able to say, okay, next time I recognize some of these signs, I got to put some strategies and tools in place so I can not go down that road.
What are some of those specific things that you have kind of implemented since then?
Yeah, so since then, morning routines. So a morning routine for me is a non-negotiable. So I actually write a couple like life and work balance kind of categories, I guess you could call it, on the Nutrition Strip blog. And there's this one where I wrote about why setting your non-negotiables is imperative to your success. So whether that's, a business owner's success, or you can take it personal success. But basically, the morning routine is a non-negotiable for me. So it includes meditation, working out, not starting work before a certain hour, so like not waking up and looking immediately at your phone, right? And then also spending time walking my dog, hanging out with my boyfriend. So really crucial things that keep me feeling centered, keep me feeling in my alignment.
So what happens on a day where you're like stressing out, you're like, oh man, I've got this big thing going on, and you're like, if I just could get an extra hour of work in, everything would just feel a lot less stressful. What do you do then?
Yeah, so I love this question.
That's me literally this morning thinking, oh my gosh, I have so much to do.
Yeah, I had that experience at the start of 2017. So just because the new year is really busy for my industry.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'll do in that moment is I recognize like, oh shit, I'm feeling super overwhelmed. What do I have to do? I'll pull away from all the social media, my computer. I'll shut everything down. Typically, I'll go on a walk, even if it's like 5 minutes outside, something to just get rid of like all of the circulating thoughts. And what I mean by get rid of as in like process, like see them come up, address them, observe them, let them go. And then I can come back at work or whatever that overwhelming situation was or something that was causing me overwhelm. I can deal with it in a much clearer, more focused, more passionate place of being than just like reaction.
That's good.
So that to me is crucial in dealing with any like overwhelming situation or stressful situation.
That's amazing. Something else I've noticed that you do is you take like digital detoxes where you say, I'm going to take some time away from email or work. You know, like I emailed you the other day and I got a little autoresponder. And the subject line said, practicing what I preach, taking time off, like I'll be back. Mm-hmm. You can expect me to respond here. Like, and I love that. Tell me about what that's been like for you.
Yeah, that came, you know, I think as you and Brandon, you probably agree, or any of us who deal with email, I mean, period, you can, it feels like you're almost like, oh my gosh, you're pulled in a million different directions. And there was this quote, and I wish I could remember who said this, but it was about, I'm not overwhelmed, I'm in demand. And so that was kind of my answer for these digital detoxes or the autoresponders on my email, for example, just to say, you know what, I will address it when I can and when I'm coming from a place of like efficiency, but also where I can answer emails or even, you know, present social media or add to the social media world with some integrity and with something that I'm proud of. Even if it is just an Instagram picture, there's a lot behind it and I want to represent it well. So that's kind of where it came from. And just because we don't need to be like on our computers every day, all the time. Yeah. You know, especially when it's in your work. So
totally. Well, and something that I think is so cool about what you do is there's so much work that goes into what you do that's outside of the world of email. Like the other day, I didn't get a chance to stop like to say hi, but like you were at my studio and you were doing a photo shoot with our friend Kelsey.
Yeah.
And I was like driving
wearing
away.
Pineapples on my head.
Yes, exactly. And so it's like you're just constantly doing all this stuff and people have come to admire and appreciate you and ultimately email you because you've put so much work into putting these beautiful products out in the world. But if you spent all your time emailing, you actually wouldn't be able to put those products into the world.
Yeah, and I think that comes back to balance really well too. And you know, I do a million things. You know, it's like that quote, like you can do anything, but you don't have to do everything. Right now, I'm in a weird position where I feel like I'm doing everything, and it's fun and it's exciting, but it can be a balancing act. So you know, typically I'll schedule my work week and kind of like a batch, if you ever do that, like you probably batch record podcast or write or whatever. So I try to compartmentalize a little bit, and that helps me create balance within my work because it is so multifaceted. Like I was, you know, it was funny, I was talking to another entrepreneur friend of mine the other day, and we were getting down to delegation, and she was like, you know, if you had to hire somebody for every task that you did, like how many people would you have to bring on? I was like, oh my God, it'd be like 8 people. But again, that's a really big balancing act. And of course, if you're going full speed doing all of those things all the time, you know, that will again lead to burnout for me. So it's just a preventative measure that I take too.
I've been thinking about this a lot, and I've been trying to figure out what balance looks like for me. And I think that there's balance on a big scale and balance on a small scale. And I think you almost can kind of choose, and I'd love your feedback on this, but I feel like you can almost kind of choose what you want. You know, so there's a balance in your day saying, I'm going to not overdo today. I'm going to have a nice amount of rest and a nice amount of work and a nice amount of, you know, X and Y and Z. And then there's the other side where it's like, maybe I've got a crazy month and I'm just going to go hard on that month. And I'm going to find balance by taking the next month more easy. And there's like it's like micro and macro. It ultimately feels like balance, and it's going to be harder the longer that you wait between the cycles of balance. But I've been kind of processing what that might look like to implement.
Yeah, I mean, I love and agree with that too. Like, I think there are times, especially, as an entrepreneur, there are times where you just you have to. You don't have a choice to do anything but hit the ground running and go pretty hard, and that's okay. And I think we have to look at it in a bigger scope, like, of our lifestyle. And also, balance to me, again, is like putting in tools, putting in strategies that keep you from getting to a place where you feel completely out of balance.
Yeah.
So again, whether that's burnout or whether that's feeling stress and bringing it home, or feeling physically ill too, like, that can be clear signs that, like, really, you're out of balance. And also too, I think in this industry, in the health and wellness industry, there's a big topic around balance with eating, and I've seen it firsthand too. Being a dietitian, I've counseled folks who have disordered eating habits, and that can be a really big thing where people kind of take it to the extreme and don't really know how to exercise balance and have these extreme lifestyle measures where they're exercising far too much and or eating too strictly. So it is, I think, a learning process for folks to find that Goldilocks, to find that middle ground where they can have some range and be like, you know what, I can eat healthy, to the best of my ability, 80 to 90% of the time, which this is kind of my motto of how I live my life. And then I'll wiggle room and have some fun on that 10 to 20%, whether that's, having a cocktail with my boyfriend or going out with girlfriends and having some pizza or something. Like, you have to enjoy life, and you have to enjoy these experiences and not miss out on them because of, following some protocols so strictly, like diets and things.
That's good. That's really good. Let's talk a little bit more about self-care in the non-digital world.
Yeah.
I think that because you're somebody who has a cookbook out in the world, it'd be easy to be like, oh, like, McKel knows all about food. Or I like to think of it as McKel knows all about smoothies, like what smoothie I need to make. But you are so good at striking this balance within all these other aspects of our lives. What are some other kind of like self-care keys that you've come to embrace over the last 4 years of running Nutrition Stripped?
Yeah, so number one on like a technical side is, which we just touched on, is organizing my work week and like batching tasks, so for time management essentially. Number two, setting boundaries with work start time and work end time. So that for me, again, because I burnt out early on, I was able to know, hey, I actually can't work out or work, the second I open my eyes until I close them at night. Also, self-care on a kind of spiritual, emotional, physical well-being is working out every day. To me, that's very meditative. So I like to swim, I like to run, and I'll recite mantras and do a little bit of meditation as I move, which is really beneficial.
Wow.
And
that's cool.
Kind of makes me feel like I have a competitive edge with myself, almost like feeling really aligned, so I can carry out my best work. And then I like to do acupuncture once a month.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never done acupuncture.
Really?
Yeah, I've never done it.
After this, I'll have to give you my acupuncturist's number because he's
Really?
great. Yeah, he's fantastic. But it changed my life. I've been doing it. Well, I will say it's been a pillar of my health that's changed my life. But I've been doing it for almost 2 years now. I'll do it once a month, maybe once every 3 months, just depending on the season.
Wow.
But it's great. It just is a nice balancer, we can call it.
Man.
It doesn't hurt either.
Yeah, it doesn't actually scare me at all.
Yeah, it doesn't.
I've just somehow never done it.
It's great.
That's cool.
Yeah, so acupuncture, I'll do massages at least once a month. I'll, small, simple acts of self-care, making a cup of tea. The whole Danish concept of hygge, which is like the art of being cozy. So those little acts that can just make us feel really good, to me, define self-care. So making a cup of tea, walking my puppy Luna, having a FaceTime session with my brother, my parents, just really simple things.
That's beautiful. What is some advice for somebody like me who, I don't necessarily have any dietary restrictions that I have in my life yet, and I kind of eat whatever I want to, and I'm learning to be more conscious of like what I put into my body, and I'm exercising a lot more. But I do want to be a whole lot more intentional about healthy living and nutritional eating. Like, what's a practical thing you could tell me to do like right now, or me or somebody like me to do right now?
Yeah, I love this question. And number one, you don't have to eat gluten-free, dairy-free. Those are the recipes that I share on Nutrition Strip because kind of selfishly they came from my own experimentation and needing those.
Yeah.
So, those recipes were developed with my needs in mind, but also they're super flexible. So you don't have to do anything with that. But I would say an easy step is to assess what you're drinking during the day. So super easy to say, hey, what am I drinking throughout the day? Am I like sustaining just on coffee? Am I drinking a lot of tea or juice or soda, whatever? And start by adding in more water. This seems super simple and cliche, but a lot of us just go around dehydrated, and we might not even know it. So sometimes dehydration can look like low energy, you're feeling like super lethargic at your desk working, you might have cramps, you might have a headache, your skin might feel really dry, really simple things. So, try to drink, I say like a couple liters of water. I think the easiest way to do it is just to have like a huge liter of water in the morning, just first thing, kind of give yourself like a internal bath, if you will. So that's number one. Number two, I think it's best to focus on what you can add in versus what you have to take out, right? So like, let's say that you're eating, quote, a lot of junk food or a lot of processed foods. It's not ideal or it's not optimal, but what you can do is just add in some things. So maybe it's starting your morning with adding in a green smoothie. And I think that it's mentally easier to wrap your head around like, oh, I'm going to add this in because and definitely it'll make you feel fuller so that you're not eating, you're not making room for other things.
Yeah.
So you're replacing it with that.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And then anytime you can add in veggies, in like a raw state or in their whole natural state, do that.
That's good.
Whether it's a salad or it's a side dish when you're out with friends at a restaurant, those are some really easy tips.
That's good. That's awesome. I love it. Based on the ways you've chosen to step out and live your life differently, to make changes in your life, to help other people accomplish their goals, what's a practical piece of advice you'd give somebody, an action step somebody could take action on today?
Yeah, I think this, kind of goes with the whole Nutrition Strip mission and lifestyle. It's not just about nutrition, although that is, my expertise, and I would totally give you some actionable points on that. But I really urge you guys to think more outside of the box and address all of these really beautiful pillars of your health, like exercise, movement, sleep, stress, support, love, relationships, fun, joy, and really think about what makes you feel whole and what makes you feel nourished. And I think an actionable step would be to journal out, what is success for you in wellness? What does that look like? What does it feel like? What does it taste like when you wake up in the morning? What is the vision that you see? And then also, like we talked a little bit about our non-negotiables, like what are those to you? What makes you feel really centered so that you can serve yourself to serve others?
My goodness, McKel was so fun. I loved getting to have this conversation with her. One of the big takeaways that I took from this was when I asked her what to do when you just feel overwhelmed, when you don't feel balanced, when there's just something pulling you away from your routine. What do you do? How do you respond? And she didn't act like she's a superhero. She didn't act like, oh, that's never happened to me, or oh, I never have problems with that. What she said was, when that happens to me, I turn off my social media, I put away my computer, and I go out and I go on a walk, or I take a break. You do something to just unplug. And it's not that you go mindless at that point. What you do is you process those feelings and those circulating thoughts, and it helps get rid of that feeling of being overwhelmed. And it helps you get back to center, back to being more balanced. And then you can go and you can actually be productive instead of operating out of kind of a crisis mode. And I thought that was super helpful. I've been thinking about that a lot over the last few days and been trying to implement it. So go out and try that this week. Let me know how it goes. And actually, let McKel know how it goes. She's all over the internet, Nutrition Stripped. Just Google it. Her website is nutritionstripped.com. And seriously, her stuff on there is so fantastic. You can check out her courses. You can join her society. It's really, really fun. And while you're Googling Nutrition Stripped, you can find me online at Brandon Harvey everywhere. My website is also brandonharvey.com. All of that is Brandon with an E-N, which is, a little bit tricky, but it's nice. I'm able to get all my usernames online. I'm able to get my websites. I've never really had a problem with that because my parents named me a little bit different. And for that, I am thankful. But I just have to do the little explainy thing every once in a while. As always, you can find and share the show notes for Sounds Good at soundsgoodpodcast.com. And if you want to keep in touch outside of the podcast, you should totally join our weekly email newsletter. Now, let me tell you, it is cooler and better than most weekly email newsletters because this one is focused on hope and joy and love and all these beautiful, good things in the world. It's called the Good Newsletter. And every single week, I just send out a list of 5 pieces of hopeful news from around the world. It's just good news stories. And I think that that's an important thing for us to focus on. There's so much good in the world. You just have to seek it out. And so I'm doing the seeking so that it can just show up in your inbox. And then maybe you're able to notice a little bit more throughout the week. And I think it's going to leave you feeling more hopeful and refreshed. So goodnewsletter.org is how you join that. It's so much fun. And then one more thing, if you want to join our little secret, super cool squad of people who are going to help me launch I almost accidentally said the name of the thing that we're working on. If you want to help me launch the secret thing that we're working on, brandonharvey.com/secret. There's a little form, fill it out. It would be super fun to have you there. brandonharvey.com/secret. And on that note, I think that's a wrap for today's episode. Go out and do some good this week, and we'll be back next Monday with an inspiring conversation with another incredible person. Sound good?